In Syria, they say that if Cemal Pasha scratches his nose while talking to someone, he is thinking about exile. If he strokes his beard, he is considering whether to forgive or not. But be afraid of his mustache twisting. That means this meeting might end in death. Cemal Pasha was a commander who left a mark with his actions in the Arab world, having a significant impact on Turkish-Arab relations even in later periods. He was a compassionate commander when needed, yet ruthless when necessary. Here is the story of Cemal Pasha, whom the Arabs nicknamed the Butcher of Arabs. Cemal Pasha, whose full name was Ahmet Cemal, was born on May 6, 1872, on the island of Lesbos, which was still Ottoman territory at the time, as the son of military pharmacist Mehmet Nesip Efendi. From a young age, he received military education, graduating first from Kuleli Military High School and then from the Military Academy. In 1895, he joined the army as a staff officer. Cemal Pasha's first prominent role in history was during his tenure as governor of Adana. After the proclamation of the Second Constitutional Era on April 14, 1909, thousands of innocent people, both Armenians and Turks, lost their lives as a result of the events caused by Armenians who started a rebellion in Adana with the aim of establishing an independent state. Cemal Pasha was sent to Adana as the governor and commander of the military forces, and he showed great success in suppressing the events and punishing the responsible parties. Although he was seen by many as a cruel ruler, he made significant contributions to quickly healing the wounds of the victimized Armenians and Turkish families affected by the rebellion, and he managed to rebuild Adana, which was devastated by the uprising, in a short time. Later, Cemal Pasha was appointed as the commander of the Fourth Army and implemented a plan called the Canal Operation to drive the British out of Egypt. On January 7, 1915, Ottoman forces launched an offensive against the British with an army of approximately 14,000 men. However, due to the desert conditions and difficulties in crossing the canal, the first and second canal expeditions did not achieve the desired results. Continuing his duties in Syria as the commander of the Fourth Army, Cemal Pasha served as the head of both the civil and military bureaucracy. Therefore, he was both an army commander and a general governor with broad powers. In a way, he was the uncrowned king of Syria. Due to the extremely turbulent region caused by the Arab revolt led by Sharif Hussein, he resorted to quite radical measures to establish Ottoman state authority effectively. He not only dealt with separatist Arab nationalists but also fought against Zionists aiming to establish a Jewish state in Palestine and detach it from Ottoman rule. He compelled all non-Ottoman Jewish citizens to become Ottoman citizens. Those who refused were deported. Similarly, he sent some Arab tribal leaders, suspected of collaborating with the British and being part of separatist movements, into exile with their families. He tried and executed rebel Arabs, disregarding even the orders from Istanbul to halt executions. This ensured his absolute authority in the region. In Syria, it became a crime not just to oppose his orders, but even to contemplate them. Due to his execution of dozens of Arab nationalists in Beirut and Damascus, and the harsh measures he implemented, Cemal Pasha faced intense criticism, and was given nicknames such as Cheza, meaning butcher, and Al-Sefa, meaning shedder of blood by the Arabs. However, through these actions and extensive propaganda efforts, Cemal Pasha somewhat prevented the Sharif Hussein revolt from turning into a wider Arab uprising. Besides his military activities, Cemal Pasha also endeavored to continue reconstruction, development, and public works even during wartime. He focused on building railways, urban development, highways, orphanages, and schools. His era witnessed significant educational advancements in Syria, and Syrians were integrated into the Ottoman army like never before in Ottoman history. However, unable to withstand attacks from British and French forces, and following successive defeats, Ottoman forces were relieved from duty in 1917, and control of the region was transferred to the Yildirim armies. Fali Rıfkı Atay recounts that Cemal Pasha, upon returning to Anatolia, cried at the Adana station saying, "I wish we had spent our blood and money in Anatolia." Shortly after the signing of the Armistice of Mudros, following the loss of the war, in November 1918, he traveled to Odessa with German submarines, and then to Berlin, along with Enver and Talat Pashas. In absentia, a military court in Istanbul sentenced him to dismissal from the army and execution for causing the rebellion of Arab elements living in the Ottoman Empire. During this period, Cemal Pasha withdrew into seclusion for a while. Unable to stay any longer after Mustafa Kemal Pasha initiated the national struggle in Anatolia, Cemal Pasha moved to instigate a revolt against the British in Afghanistan. His aim was to threaten the British by inciting an uprising in Afghanistan, thereby weakening their position in Anatolia. Initially, the Russians welcomed and supported this plan. He also maintained communication with Enver Pasha and Mustafa Kemal Pasha. However, things soon took a turn for the worse. The Germans failed to deliver the promised weapons, and the Russians grew suspicious, believing Cemal Pasha and Enver Pasha were attempting to unite Turks in Russia and across Asia under tyrannist ideals. Consequently, Cemal Pasha found himself isolated in his struggle. He left Afghanistan and moved to Tiflis. While preparing to return to Turkey, he was ambushed and martyred on the evening of July 21, 1922, along with his 2 aides. The question of whether Armenians or the Russian Secret Service organized this assassination remains uncertain to this day. Initially buried in Tiflis, his remains were later exhumed on the orders of the Ankara government and brought to Erzurum by Eastern Front commander Kazım Karabekir to be reinterred in Kaskapu Martyrs Cemetery. Like Enver Pasha, Cemal Pasha harbored the dream of one day returning to his homeland until his dying moments, but like Enver and Talat Pasha, he too returned to his country in a coffin.